Jason sat on the cold concrete steps outside a bustling restaurant in downtown Los Angeles. The sun was just beginning to set, painting the sky with warm oranges and pinks. The busy street was alive with laughter, voices, and the sounds of clinking glasses from inside. He wore an old, faded jacket and ripped jeans. A beanie sat low over his eyes, trying to shield him from the prying gaze of passersby. He looked down at the small collection of coins resting beside him. A few pennies, a nickel, a quarter, just enough to buy a cup of coffee if he was lucky. Jason had learned to survive this way without a permanent home, picking up scraps and living day to day. He called out, his voice barely rising above the sounds of the crowd. People walked past, lost in their own worlds, their eyes avoiding his as if he were invisible. A few glanced at him, then quickly looked away. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. A knot tightened in his stomach. Thoughts of the last meal he had days ago flooded back. He couldn't remember what it felt like to be full, to be warm, or to sleep somewhere without fear. As dusk settled in, Jason's gaze turned to the valet area where sleek cars pulled up one after another. An array of shiny vehicles awaited their owners, their polished exteriors gleaming in the fading light. BMWs, Audis, and more, all symbols of the life that seemed so beyond his reach. Just then, a man with slick-back hair and a crisp suit strolled up to the valet, laughing loudly. He looked the part of someone who had it all: confidence, swagger. Jason glanced at him, feeling that familiar twinge of jealousy. With a snap of his fingers, the valet rushed forward, keys dangling in his hand like a golden ticket. Jason shifted his attention back to his own situation. He mumbled again, almost to himself. The echo of his voice mixed with the roar of an engine as a bright red sports car pulled away from the valet stand, its engine purring like a wild animal. Then, like a scene from a fantastical dream, the same valet glided toward Jason. His demeanor was calm and collected, as if he was used to dealing with oddities all day. "Hey buddy," he said, stopping just a few feet from Jason. Jason looked up, surprised that someone would approach him. Yeah, I guess." The valet grinned, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. "Not what I had in mind." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. Jason blinked, caught off guard. With a flourish, the valet tossed the keys into Jason's lap. "That baby out there, it's a brand new Aston Martin. Take it for a spin, just." At first, Jason thought it was some kind of sick joke. "Absolutely," the valet replied, his smile unwavering. Jason's heart raced, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. This was something beyond his wildest imagination. Gripping the keys tightly, he felt trapped between excitement and disbelief. The valet teased, nudging Jason playfully. Jason stood up, the reality of the situation crashing over him like a tidal wave. He walked toward the sleek machine, its red paint glistening under the neon lights of the street. Never in his life had he been this close to something so luxurious. As he slid into the driver's seat, the smell of leather enveloped him like a warm hug. The interior was like stepping into a dream. He adjusted the seat, feeling like royalty in a throne. Glancing around, he noticed the dashboard adorned with shiny new gadgets, each one more enticing than the last. His fingers shook as he turned the ignition, and the engine roared to life, vibrating through him. With more courage than sense, he eased his foot onto the gas pedal. The car shot forward, and the world outside blurred as he felt the thrill of power beneath him. He could barely keep himself from laughing out loud. Every worry faded away. For those few moments, he was no longer Jason, the man begging for spare change. He was someone else entirely, someone who could fly. He drove through the city streets, the wind whipping through his hair. Bystanders turned to stare as he zipped past, and he reveled in the feeling of being alive. He hadn't felt this way in so long, and it was intoxicating. Every corner he took made him feel like he was breaking free, escaping a life that had put him in chains. But then reality crept back in, a reminder of who he was and the struggles he faced daily. For a brief moment, the freedom he felt was like the most potent drug, but the joy was quickly tinged with sorrow. What would happen when he had to return to his life? His heart sank with the thought. He had temporarily escaped, but where would he go once he handed that luxury back? After what felt like an eternity, Jason knew it was time to return. Parked the car and stepped out, the glow of streetlights revealing the grime on his hands. He glanced around, taking in the world he had momentarily soared above. As he approached the valet, the man's smile was radiant. "Amazing," Jason replied, the words barely scraping the surface of his experience. The valet nodded, clearly enjoying Jason's enthusiasm. "I figured you'd like it." A silence settled between them, and suddenly Jason felt the weight of the moment. He asked, his voice thick with emotion. The valet seemed to pause, searching for the right words. "You never know what someone is going through," he finally said. "Everyone deserves a little kindness, don't you think?" Jason's heart tightened. Those words hung heavy in the air. They sparked something deep inside him. As the valet collected the keys, Jason knew he had to say something. "I don't know how to thank you, that was..." Jason watched the valet disappear into the night, a swirl of emotions churning inside him. He took a deep breath, feeling something he hadn't felt in ages, a flicker of hope. Maybe he could try to change his life. Maybe he could find a way to leave this all behind. The dream he had lost wasn't gone, it just needed to be reignited. As he walked back to his steps, he felt different. He was still Jason, the man who had asked for spare change, but now he was also someone capable of more. The taste of freedom lingered on his lips, and the weight on his shoulders felt just a little lighter. He could still hear the engines roar in his ears, a beautiful reminder of what it felt like to soar. It resonated like a promise not just made to himself, but also to a world that had turned away. Maybe tomorrow he'd ask for a job. Maybe he'd find a way to start over. In that bustling city under the fading twilight, Jason dared to dream again. The path before him remained uncertain, but the spark inside pushed him forward. Hope lingered in the air, and for the first time in a long time, life felt alive again. Jason crouched against the cold brick wall, a thin layer of grime on his hands. The street bustled with life, laughter, and the savory smells of late-night food wafting through the air. A line he knew too well. Little did he know tonight would be different from any other night. Just as he spoke, a sleek black sedan rolled up to the curb. The kind of car that turned heads and inspired envy. A shiny, modern design, it looked like a predator lurking just beyond his reach. Judging by the polished exterior and the shiny rims, it belonged to someone wealthy. The valet approached, wearing a crisp uniform that seemed a world apart from Jason's ragged clothes. The valet stepped forward, a confident smile on his face, and walked past Jason with barely a glance. The driver's door swung open, and out stepped a man in a tailored suit, flashy watch glinting in the streetlights. He laughed boisterously, his demeanor dripping with arrogance and success. Jason's heart sank a little. Moments like this were both familiar and painful. Jason repeated, raising his voice a notch. A few pedestrians shuffled by, their eyes glued to their phones, their attention locked onto the distant buzz of their own lives. No one noticed him, no one cared. After a few more seconds, the valet returned, keys jangling like chimes in the wind. He said with an optimistic cheer. The man in the suit glanced at Jason. "You might ask for a little more than that, buddy," he sneered, tossing a coin that bounced to the ground before stepping into his luxury vehicle. Jason picked up the coin, running his thumb over the rough edges. It was a quarter, almost enough for a cheap cup of coffee. Just as he was about to slip the coin into his pocket, he noticed the valet was still watching him. Then, unexpectedly, the valet turned and approached him. There was something genuine in his tone, a spark of kindness shining through the busy world around them. "Yeah, I guess," Jason replied, a mix of curiosity and skepticism in his voice. The valet gestured toward the sleek car that was now parked and waiting. It was almost gleaming the way it caught the light of the street lamps. "I've never even sat in a car like that," Jason responded, a bitter edge to his voice. "Sure you could." The valet chuckled, and Jason couldn't help but smirk. "Right," Jason said. "What am I supposed to do?" The valet's eyes lit up. "Take it for a spin." For a moment, it felt like a scene from a movie. Jason stared at the keys dangling from the valet's fingers, so close yet so far. He fought a swirling mix of emotions that choked him, hope and fear battling it out in his gut. Jason said, glancing from the keys to the valet, searching for a sign that it was all a joke. "Not at all. Consider it a gift," the valet replied, his smile wide and sincere. Against all logic, Jason reached out, taking the keys from the valet's hand. Weight of them felt foreign in his palm. The keys glimmered under the lights, full of promise. "Get in," the valet encouraged, and without thinking twice, Jason found himself walking toward the car. Sliding into the driver's seat, he was immediately enveloped by the smell of new leather. It was as if the car itself was breathing life into him, pulling him out of the shadows. He took a deep breath, found the ignition, and clicked it to life. The engine roared, vibrating through his chest, igniting something inside him. It was powerful, a sound that felt like freedom. The valet called from the side, his excitement evident. Jason glanced around. The bustling street suddenly felt like a stage set just for him. What was he doing? He could hardly believe it himself. This wasn't just a car. It symbolized everything he'd lost and dreamed of, the life he thought was slipping away. Nothing had come easy in years, but here he was, gripping the steering wheel of something extraordinary. As he pulled away from the curb, the fear mingled with exhilaration, sending adrenaline coursing through his veins. The car glided along the road, and for a moment everything fell away, the questions, the judgments, the loneliness. Just the road ahead, wide open and inviting. He turned down a quiet street, allowing himself to explore the car's potential. With every press of the gas pedal, a surge of power shot forward, and the night became a blur of lights. He felt like he was transforming, shedding layers of despair like an old skin. What Jason didn't realize was that he had become the center of attention. Bystanders turned their heads, some snapping pictures, others watching with wide eyes. Man who once sat on the sidelines of life was now front and center, framed against the glowing skyline. But after a while, the thrill began to fade into reality. The laughter of the suited man echoed in his mind. He was a man who sat on the edge of the world's wealth. What right did he have to be here? A knot began to form in his stomach, and thoughts of using the car for a better life danced dangerously close to an impossible dream. He found himself at a stoplight, the world around him slowing down. In the stillness, he remembered where he came from. The car was a beautiful moment, but it was built on the shadows of his existence. He needed a way out, but this wasn't it. As he sat there weighing his options, he caught a glimpse of himself in the review mirror. The reflection staring back was wild-eyed and wide with wonder, but still tinged with the remnants of despair. He couldn't let it slip away. Moments like this were for the brave. "Don't take it for granted," Jason whispered to himself, hearts pounding against the steering wheel. With a sudden surge of determination, he decided to turn downtown toward the heart of the city where the lights pulsed with life. He felt an electric rush, the danger of the unknown setting his senses on fire. As he sped through the streets, he wondered who he would become if he made it out of this life. He thought about the dreams he had before life took him down a darker path, dreams of being something more than empty and alone. By the time he reached the busy district, he was fully immersed in the rush of living. Each corner felt like a step toward reclaiming pieces of himself that he thought were lost forever. The car swerved and maneuvered through traffic with precision, each turn awakening a part of him that craved existence beyond survival. But deep down, he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. What happens when the night ends? What do you do when the music stops? The magic of the ride was wonderful, but it was fleeting, a moment that would end all too soon. Time flew by, and Jason felt the heaviness of reality creeping back in. It was almost too much to bear. His mind raced. This opportunity could be the key to making a change. He could start over. But as he maneuvered through the thrumming city, a question loomed. What would he do? How could he turn this moment of joy into a future worth embracing? With the sun beginning to rise on the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of gold and crimson, a pang of regret shot through him. He didn't want to give up this slice of freedom, but he couldn't ignore the truth. He had to face the man who had given him this chance. "He won't believe I took it this long," he chuckled to himself, half in disbelief and half in a little pride. With a rush of courage, he made a U-turn, heading back toward the valet stand, where the men in crisp uniforms continued about their evening. As he approached, the valet spotted him first, disbelief flickering across his face. "You actually," the valet began, stunned at the sight of Jason returning in the pristine sports car. "I'm bringing it back," Jason called out, a nervous laugh escaping his lips. "I'm not running off with it." The valet broke into a smile, relief washing over him. Jason stepped out of the car, still buzzing with the thrill of the ride. He handed back the keys, realizing that the experience had changed him in more ways than one. "Thanks for the ride," he said, a genuine gratitude lighting up his tone. The valet nodded. "You did good out there." Jason smiled. As he walked away, an unexpected warmth settled in his chest. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose starting to emerge. Maybe it wasn't about the car or the fleeting thrill of the ride. It was a reminder that he still had a choice that could lead to better days ahead. The sun rose higher in the sky, wrapping the world in light. Jason stepped into his future, carrying with him a new hope, convinced that every moment, from the kind of car he couldn't touch to the destiny he could shape, was just waiting to be driven. Jason sat hunched over on the frigid sidewalk, wrapped in a faded blanket that had seen better days. It was just past sunset, and the glow from nearby streetlights flickered like distant stars amid the noise of the bustling downtown. People rushed by, bundled in expensive coats, their laughter ringing like chimes in the night air. He raised his voice, fighting against the din. He asked, but his words barely pierced the ambience of city life. The moment felt as familiar as the cardboard under his feet. He had mastered this game of survival, his hands stashed with coins received from fleeting glimpses of sympathy. Just a few blocks down, the lavish restaurant served rich meals to those who didn't blink twice at the thought of spending $100 on dinner. Meanwhile, it had been days since his last real meal, and the gnawing in his stomach was a constant reminder of his reality. Then in the haze of sound and light, a gleaming black sedan rolled up to the curb. Polished to perfection, the kind that drew eyes and left trails of envy in its wake. The valet, dressed sharply in a neat uniform, stepped forward, a confident smile plastered across his face, completely oblivious to Jason's existence. The valet announced with the kind of excitement meant for someone who had just received a coveted prize. The driver, a man in a tailored suit, stepped out. He had that wealthy demeanor, broad shoulders, easy laughter, and eyes that sparkled with a certain entitlement. Jason called out again, a bit louder this time. The man glanced sideways, a flicker of disdain crossing his face as he tossed a coin that landed at Jason's feet, barely missing a puddle. "Good luck with that," the man said, climbing into his luxury vehicle. Jason could hear the click of the locks engage as the varnished doors sealed him off from the world outside. "Just a quarter," Jason muttered to himself, picking it up and rolling it between his fingers as he watched the sedan glide away into the soft glow of streetlights. Just then the valet caught his eye. "Hey," the valet said, strolling towards him with surprising ease. Jason looked up, confusion mingled with curiosity. The valet tilted his head toward the luxurious car that had just pulled away, still gleaming in the evening light. "Drive." Jason replied, a chuckle escaping his lips, though it felt more like disbelief. "Sure you would." The valet's grin widened, radiating a warmth that struck Jason as unexpected. "What if I told you?" Jason blinked. "No joke." The valet reached into his pocket and pulled out a shiny keyring, holding it out like a prize. For a moment, Jason felt the weight of the world shift. There he was in a tattered blanket, holding out his hand for spare change, and yet he was being offered the keys to a dream. "You're serious? Why not? It'll be a story to tell." The valet shrugged, his confidence unshakable. Jason hesitated, heart pounding. His mind raced with doubts, but deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. What did he have to lose? He reached out, wrapping his fingers around the keys, astonished they felt warm and alive in his hand. Shakily, he made his way over to the car, heart racing like a kid about to get on a roller coaster for the first time. This was his opportunity to escape, to feel a moment of life that seemed forever out of reach. Sliding into the driver's seat, the scent of fresh leather and the hum of the engine were intoxicating. It enveloped him like a warm hug, erasing the worries that plagued his thoughts. The dashboard was a marvel of modern technology, buttons shining like gems, promising the thrill of power and speed. With deft hands, he turned the key. The engine roared to life, vibrating through his core in a way that felt oddly empowering. He couldn't believe he was here, behind the wheel of a sports car, like a scene crafted from a fantasy. The valet called out, standing a few feet back, his expression a mix of support and excitement. "Yeah." Jason replied, gripping the steering wheel tighter as he glanced toward the open road ahead. He pressed the gas and the car surged forward, pinning his adrenaline to the ceiling as the city blurred. He was caught in a tidal wave of exhilaration. The world outside melted into a kaleidoscope of colors. With each turn, he felt the burgeoning freedom as more than just a fleeting dream. He was powerful now, someone who could escape the chains that had bound him for too long. The city raced past like a whirlpool of light and sound, and for once Jason was the one in control. But as he weaved through downtown streets, exhilaration soon transformed into anxiety. What was he doing? Was he temporarily lost in a fantasy, or was this a chance to reclaim the dreams he once had? He quickly glanced at the speedometer, noting how fast he was going, and it scared him. He knew that the thrill couldn't last forever. Every road eventually led somewhere, and he had to decide where he wanted to go. He had always yearned for something better, but was this the right step? Just then he reached the edge of the city, a wide stretch of road surrounded by palm trees that towered like guardians. At that moment, everything shifted. The emptiness inside him pulsed with an urgency. He needed to find his way, to carve out a new path for himself. Pulling over to the curb, he paused and took a deep breath. The weight of uncertainty flooded back, but this time it didn't feel suffocating. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something, a chance to manifest the potential he had buried deep within. After a moment of contemplation, he turned the car around, gliding back toward the valet. The air filled with a newfound energy as reality began to settle in. He was still the same man with a tattered blanket and empty pockets, but he was also more a man who had tasted freedom, even if just for a moment. Returning to the valet, he parked the car beside its shining brethren. The valet was waiting, his expression shifting from curiosity to open admiration. "I know, I just needed to experience it," Jason admitted, still buzzing from the ride. The valet chuckled, clearly enjoying Jason's joy. "You deserve every moment of that thrill." Jason nodded slowly, still absorbing the realization that he had conquered something tonight. He asked, his thoughts racing. "Now you take that feeling inside you, leverage it. If you can find a moment of joy in that car, you can find joy in other places too." The valet asked, his voice steady. Taking a moment to reflect, Jason stood at the crossroads of change. "I want to find a way out of this life," he confessed, a sense of determination creeping into his voice. "Then don't," the valet encouraged, a knowing look in his eyes. "What are you good at? Find something that lights you up." Jason's heart started to race again. A future filled with possibility, tangible and real, was blooming before him. "I used to love fixing cars, working with my hands." "Then do it," the valet replied, his encouragement rolling like thunder. "Start small, look for opportunities." Tears prickled at the corners of Jason's eyes as he stood in the presence of kindness, a balm to his bruised spirit. "It's easy when someone has potential," the valet replied warmly. "Never underestimate yourself." He extended his hand. "Now get going." Jason took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He grasped the valet's hand, a firm grip that felt like an unspoken promise. The stillness of the night was a canvas waiting for him to paint his next move. Jason stepped back onto the sidewalk and took one last glance at the sports car, the potent reminder of what was possible. Excitement surged within him as possibility swirled, transforming his anxiety into hope. That day, Jason would begin plotting a course toward a new life, one that bifurcated from despair to dreams. Every road traveled would be a testament to his journey, every mile a tribute to triumphs both big and small. With a newfound sense of purpose, he walked away from the valet stand, head held high, ready to take on the world. Behind him, the rhythm of city life pulsed, but he would no longer be a spectator. He would harness his story, crafting it into something of value, a journey worth taking, one steering wheel at a time. Jason crouched on the sidewalk, his back against the cool, unforgiving brick wall. The early evening air was thick with the sounds of laughter, voices, and the clinking of glasses from nearby restaurants filled with well-dressed patrons enjoying their meals. Hoping someone would hear him, even if just for a moment, It was a routine that had become all too familiar, the predictable dance of desperation and hope. As people passed by, their gazes turned away, their faces set in determined indifference. Tonight, like every other night, he felt that familiar weight in his chest, an emptiness that had swallowed him whole. But just as he settled into that sad rhythm, an opulent black SUV pulled up, its polished surface catching the dying sun. The valet, perfectly groomed and dressed in a crisp uniform, hurried forward. A well-dressed man stepped out, exuding wealth and charm, clearly unburdened by the struggles that Jason faced daily. As the man moved toward the entrance of the glamorous restaurant, he tossed a coin at Jason, not even bothering to make eye contact. It landed at Jason's feet, a lone quarter sparkling under the streetlights like a cruel joke. "Thanks," Jason muttered, picking up the coin and rolling it nervously between his fingers. It felt like a reminder of everything he lacked. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed the valet looking at him, an unexpected expression of compassion on his face. He asked, taking a step toward Jason, breaking the invisible barrier that so often separated people in this city. "I'm fine," Jason replied, but the truth was far from it. He was tired of sitting here, tired of pleading for scraps, tired of the emptiness gnawing at his insides. "Listen," the valet continued, locking eyes with Jason. "You seem like you could use a break." For a moment, Jason thought he misheard. His voice wavered with disbelief. "Yeah, that car. It's just sitting there and I can let you drive it. Just a quick spin around the block," the valet urged, as if sensing the flicker of hope igniting within Jason. Jason scoffed, a mix of excitement and skepticism washing over him. "Dead serious," the valet replied, flashing a grin that lit up his face. "I see you out here every night." Jason hesitated. The thought of driving a car that cost more than his life savings felt like a dream too big to grasp. But then again, what did he have to lose? He had spent months scrambling for coins, fighting to survive. This could be a moment, a fleeting chance to escape the chains that bound him to his reality. "Okay, fine," Jason finally said, the words spilling out in a rush. "Trust me, just get in." The valet handed him the keys, the gleaming metal feeling heavy in his palm, a key to worlds unknown. Moving toward the car, Jason felt a buzz of electricity coursing through him, panic and excitement swirling together. He slid into the plush interior, inhaling the scent of new leather. It enveloped him, wrapping around his heart and lifting him for that split second. With trembling hands, he inserted the key into the ignition, and the engine roared to life. The sound vibrated through him, sending shivers down his spine. It was a powerful reminder that he was alive, that he had breath in his lungs and dreams still flickering at the edges of his consciousness. The valet asked, standing outside the driver's door, his enthusiasm infectious. Jason took a deep breath, his heart pounding in anticipation, feeling more alive than he had in ages. He eased the car onto the busy street, the world blurring around him as he pressed the accelerator. It felt like soaring a rush that transported him away from the struggles of his everyday life. With every turn of the wheel, he felt invincible. As he navigated through the city, the headlights of oncoming cars flickered like stars, reflecting the freedom surging within him. He didn't just see the buildings and the people anymore. He felt like he was part of something larger, a connection he hadn't experienced in so long. But with every passing moment came the awareness of reality creeping back in, a stark reminder that this thrill could not last forever. This life was a borrowed moment, a temporary escape that would inevitably end. Jason's mind raced. He could feel the weight of his past settling in around him, pushing against that fleeting exhilaration. What was he doing? Just as quickly as this opportunity had presented itself, it could be taken away. Would he return to begging after this, feeling even more defeated than before? With those thoughts churning in his mind, he took a turn down a quiet avenue that opened up like a promise. It was quieter, the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. Here he could feel the tension melting away, the roar of the engine echoing his heartbeat. Still, doubt gnawed at him. He thought of the countless nights spent cold and hungry, a few coins in his pocket, barely enough to buy anything. The thrill of this car was exhilarating, but inside he wrestled with the reality he would eventually return to. "Maybe I could do something different," he murmured to himself. But how? The question hung heavy in the air as he pushed down the accelerator, and the engine responded with a growl. Louder and more powerful, each rev resonated with a call to transform his life. He took a deep breath, letting the emotions swirl. The taste of freedom mixed with the bitterness of reality, the contrast shaping a sense of urgency within him. He glanced at the dashboard, flicking through the controls, enthralled by everything he'd taken for granted until now. As he turned onto another street, the weight of those decisions settled in. How many times had he dreamt of a life beyond this, to escape the shadows and step into the light? Could he dare to believe it was possible? In that fleeting moment, he tracked the stars twinkling like beacons in the evening sky, whispering secrets of potential and possibility. He pressed on the gas once more, navigating through the swirling lights of the city, daring to imagine a different future. But he couldn't forget the reality waiting for him. As he turned back toward the valet's stand, he couldn't shake that gnawing feeling inside. This car wasn't just metal and wheels, it represented dreams of a life he believed he had lost. Just as he reached the place where everything had begun, he felt a surge of emotion. Spotting the valet standing there, watching him return, Jason's heart raced. So many thoughts fought for space in his mind, and the moment he parked the car, his hands shook against the steering wheel. The valet exclaimed, a bright smile lighting up his face. It was incredible, Jason said, his voice thick with emotion, but also a little daunting. It felt so good to be free. The valet's expression transformed into something more serious. I get it, it's easy to get caught in that cycle. Jason inhaled deeply, letting those words sink in. I want to change, then start exploring, cultivate that feeling. The valet gestured to the bustling city, full of opportunities waiting to be seized. Taking those words to heart, Jason nodded. I'll do it. As he stepped out of the car, leaving the luxury behind, Jason felt lighter than he had in ages. He might not have much, just a few coins to his name, but he was carrying a glimmer of hope, a new vision for what his life could be. He faced the valet, whose eyes sparkled with encouragement. Thanks for this, really. Just remember, you don't have to stay stuck. Every journey begins with a single step, the valet replied, a knowing smile on his face. With that, Jason trudged away from the valet stand, each step feeling purposeful. The world was still spinning, filled with people bustling past him, each lost in their lives, but now he felt different, unshackled. The shadows might still cling at his heels, but he could finally see a path ahead, illuminated by the dreams he thought had flickered out. Every single moment leading up to this culminated in unveiling possibilities he never thought possible. He was no longer bound by despair. He would learn to navigate his future, and in its embrace, he would find his own acceleration toward freedom. As he walked away into the night, Jason knew this journey was just beginning. Jason crouched on the sidewalk, his back against the cool, unforgiving brick wall. The early evening air was thick with laughter, voices, and the clinking of glasses from nearby restaurants filled with well-dressed patrons enjoying their meals. Hoping someone would hear him even for a moment, it was a routine that had become all too familiar, the predictable dance of desperation and hope. As people passed by, their gazes turned away, their faces set in determined indifference. Tonight, like every other night, he felt that heavy weight in his chest, an emptiness that had swallowed him whole. But just as he settled into that sad rhythm, an opulent black SUV pulled up, its polished surface catching the dying sun. The valet, perfectly groomed and dressed in a crisp uniform, hurried forward. A well-dressed man stepped out, exuding wealth and charm, clearly unburdened by the struggles that Jason faced daily. As the man moved toward the entrance of the glamorous restaurant, he tossed a coin at Jason, not even bothering to make eye contact. It landed at Jason's feet, a lone quarter sparkling under the streetlights like a cruel joke. Thanks, Jason muttered, picking up the coin and rolling it nervously between his fingers. It felt like a reminder of everything he lacked. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed the valet looking at him, an unexpected expression of compassion on his face. He asked, taking a step toward Jason, breaking the invisible barrier that so often separated people in this city. I'm fine, Jason replied, but the truth was far from it. He was tired of sitting here, tired of pleading for scraps, tired of the emptiness gnawing at his insides. Listen, the valet continued, locking eyes with Jason. You seem like you could use a break. For a moment, Jason thought he misheard. His voice wavered with disbelief. Yeah, that car. It's just sitting there and I can let you drive it. Just a quick spin around the block, the valet urged, as if sensing the flicker of hope igniting within Jason. Jason scoffed, a mix of excitement and skepticism washing over him. Dead serious, the valet replied, flashing a grin that lit up his face. I see you out here every night. Jason hesitated. The thought of driving a car that cost more than his life savings felt like a dream too big to grasp. But then again, what did he have to lose? He had spent months scrambling for coins, fighting to survive. This could be a moment, a fleeting chance to escape the chains that bound him to his reality. Okay, fine, Jason finally said, the words spilling out in a rush. Trust me, just get in. The valet handed him the keys, the gleaming metal feeling heavy in his palm, a key to worlds unknown. Moving toward the car, Jason felt a buzz of electricity coursing through him, panic and excitement swirling together. He slid into the plush interior, inhaling the scent of new leather. It enveloped him, wrapping around his heart and lifting him for that split second. With trembling hands, he inserted the key into the ignition, and the engine roared to life. The sound vibrated through him, sending shivers down his spine. It was a powerful reminder that he was alive, that he had breath in his lungs and dreams still flickering at the edges of his consciousness. The valet asked, standing outside the driver's door, his enthusiasm infectious. Jason took a deep breath, his heart pounding in anticipation, feeling more alive than he had in ages. He eased the car onto the busy street, the world blurring around him as he pressed the accelerator. It felt like soaring, a rush that transported him away from the struggles of his everyday life. With every turn of the wheel, he felt invincible. As he navigated through the city, the headlights of oncoming cars flickered like stars, reflecting the freedom surging within him. He didn't just see the buildings and the people anymore. He felt like he was part of something larger, a connection he hadn't experienced in so long. But with every passing moment came the awareness of reality creeping back in, a stark reminder that this thrill could not last forever. This life was a borrowed moment, a temporary escape that would inevitably end. Jason's mind raced. He could feel the weight of his past settling in around him, pushing against that fleeting exhilaration. What was he doing? Just as quickly as this opportunity had presented itself, it could be taken away. Would he return to begging after this, feeling even more defeated than before? With those thoughts churning in his mind, he took a turn down a quiet avenue that opened up like a promise. It was quieter, the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. Here he could feel the tension melting away, the roar of the engine echoing his heartbeat. Still, doubt gnawed at him. He thought of the countless nights spent cold and hungry, a few coins in his pocket, barely enough to buy anything. The thrill of this car was exhilarating, but inside he wrestled with the reality he would eventually return to. Maybe I could do something different, he murmured to himself. But how? The question hung heavy in the air as he pushed down the accelerator and the engine responded with a growl. Louder and more powerful, each rev resonated with a call to transform his life. He took a deep breath, letting the emotions swirl. The taste of freedom mixed with the bitterness of reality, the contrast shaping a sense of urgency within him. He glanced at the dashboard, flicking through the controls, enthralled by everything he'd taken for granted until now. As he turned onto another street, the weight of those decisions settled in. How many times had he dreamt of a life beyond this, to escape the shadows and step into the light? Could he dare to believe it was possible? In that fleeting moment, he tracked the stars twinkling like beacons in the evening sky, whispering secrets of potential and possibility. He pressed on the gas once more, navigating through the swirling lights of the city, daring to imagine a different future. But he couldn't forget the reality waiting for him. As he turned back toward the valet's stand, he couldn't shake that gnawing feeling inside. This car wasn't just metal and wheels, it represented dreams of a life he believed he had lost. Just as he reached the place where everything had begun, he felt a surge of emotion. Spotting the valet standing there, watching him return, Jason's heart raced. So many thoughts fought for space in his mind, and the moment he parked the car, his hands shook against the steering wheel. The valet exclaimed, a bright smile lighting up his face. It was incredible, Jason said, his voice thick with emotion, but also a little daunting. It felt so good to be free. The valet's expression transformed into something more serious. I get it, it's easy to get caught in that cycle. Jason inhaled deeply, letting those words sink in. I want to change, then start exploring, cultivate that feeling. The valet gestured to the bustling city, full of opportunities waiting to be seized. Taking those words to heart, Jason nodded, I'll do it. As he stepped out of the car, leaving the luxury behind, Jason felt lighter than he had in ages. He might not have much, just a few coins to his name, but he was carrying a glimmer of hope, a new vision for what his life could be. He faced the valet, whose eyes sparkled with encouragement. Thanks for this, really. Just remember, you don't have to stay stuck. Every journey begins with a single step, the valet replied, a knowing smile on his face. With that, Jason trudged away from the valet stand, each step feeling purposeful. The world was still spinning, filled with people bustling past him, each lost in their lives. But now he felt different, unshackled. The shadows might still cling at his heels, but he could finally see a path ahead, illuminated by the dreams he thought had flickered out. Every single moment leading up to this culminated in unveiling possibilities he never thought possible. He was no longer bound by despair. He would learn to navigate his future, and in its embrace, he would find his own acceleration toward freedom. As he walked away into the night, Jason knew this journey was just beginning. The roar of that engine still echoed in his mind, a call to push forward, to thrive in the life that was waiting for him beyond the shadows. Jason crouched against the brick wall, the chill of the concrete seeping through his thin jacket. He caught snippets of laughter and clinking glass from the restaurant across the street, the warm glow of light spilling onto the pavement like liquid gold. He called out half-heartedly, raising his hand as people strode past, their faces locked in determined indifference. He'd done this countless times, this ritual of survival. Every night, he watched the rich and the fortunate navigate their lives with ease while he sat on the periphery, begging for scraps. Each coin that landed at his feet felt like a reminder of everything he lacked. A quarter here, a dime there, enough to get him through one more day, just another cycle of aching emptiness. But tonight would be different. He felt it in the air, a palpable shift, like the city itself was holding its breath. Jason glanced down the street as a sleek black sedan glided into the valet stand, its polished exterior gleaming like a diamond against the backdrop of the gritty urban landscape. The valet, a sharply dressed young man with an easy smile, approached the car with an air of confidence, the familiar choreography of the rich about to unfold. As the driver emerged, a well-groomed man in a tailored suit, he exuded the kind of arrogance that only wealth could bestow. With a dismissive wave, he tossed a coin Jason's way, not bothering to look in his direction. clinked against the pavement, a cruel echo of the life he would never know. "Thanks for nothing," Jason muttered, bending down to pick up the quarter and rolling it between his fingers. Little did he know, this night held a wild twist that would change everything. The valet's voice broke through his thoughts, a surprisingly warm tone that contrasted sharply with the brisk night air. Jason glanced up, caught off guard by the sudden attention. "Yeah, I guess," he replied, attempting to mask the surprise mingled with skepticism. The valet nodded toward the sleek machine parked nearby, its curves and lines practically whispering promises of freedom. Jason scoffed. His voice was laced with disbelief, but also a glimmer of something else, curiosity. "Trust me, it's easier than you think," the valet said, his eyes sparkling with something genuine. A pulse of shock shot through Jason. Was this a joke? He studied the valet's face, searching for a trace of humor. "Dead serious," the valet replied, grinning like he was giving away candy on Halloween. "You've been out here long enough." Jason hesitated, the weight of the keys dangling from the valet's outstretched hand looming large in the space between them. This was more than just a car, it was a glimpse into a reality he thought had disappeared. After months of struggle and despair, here was an electrifying opportunity. His heart quickened at the thought of escaping, even for just a moment. Swallowing his doubt, Jason reached for the keys, feeling their cool metal against his palm. "Okay, but just follow your instincts. It's all about the feel," the valet encouraged, a contagious excitement radiating from him. With every ounce of courage he could muster, Jason climbed into the driver's seat. The moment he settled in, he was enveloped by the rich scent of leather, and it felt like the world around him faded away. He gripped the steering wheel, his hands trembling, not from fear but from a thrill he hadn't experienced in years. The engine roared to life, and it was as if he had awakened a beast. Power surged beneath him, a raw energy that resonated with something deep within. This wasn't just mechanical, it was emotional. The valet called from outside, anticipation written across his face. "Yeah." As Jason eased the car onto the street, his heart raced. The world blurred around him, the city lights bleeding together like paint on a canvas. This was freedom, an intoxicating rush that lifted him into the clouds. Every turn of the wheel felt like a small revolution, the asphalt unrolling before him like a new life waiting to be claimed. But then doubt crept in like a cold chill rippling through the warmth of his newfound exhilaration. What was he doing? What would happen next? Life had cul-de-sacs, and he didn't want to lose himself in one again. Jason turned onto a quieter street lined with palm trees swaying gently in the night air. Here he could breathe. The car responded to his slightest touch as if it knew his inner yearnings, but the weight of reality hung heavily in the air. What would he do after tonight? He couldn't go back to begging, that was the unshakable truth. With every press of the gas, he felt both powerful and powerless. The reality of his life loomed at the edges, reminding him that he was still a man who had asked for spare change, not a rich man navigating the roads of luxury. Still, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Maybe he could turn that yearning into something tangible. Maybe he could claw his way back from the shadows of despair that had gripped him for so long. As he drove, the hum of the engine matched the rhythm of his heart. It felt like carving out a new destiny. He imagined a life where he could wake up in the morning and take control of his choices rather than waiting for the world to hand him pennies. But as the moments slipped into minutes, Jason knew there was no way this ride could last forever. He had to return the keys in the car. That sobering thought made his heart sink. Could he handle facing the reality waiting for him back on the sidewalk, cold and sterile? In that bittersweet moment, he made the decision to turn back. The valet was waiting for him, and the air felt thick with unspoken words. Would he let this moment of freedom slip away without taking action? Fear gripped him, but so did determination. If he could drive a car like this, surely he could change the direction of his life. As he parked the car, he took a deep breath, bracing himself. The valet approached, his expression a mix of anticipation and curiosity. The valet asked, a bright smile dancing across his face. "It was incredible," Jason replied, the weight of emotion creeping into his voice, "but it's so surreal." The valet's expression shifted to something deeper, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You don't have to, that's the thing." Jason nodded, the weight of those words sinking in. "But how?" "Start with what you know," the valet suggested, "what you enjoy. If you can feel that rush behind the wheel, you can channel it into something bigger." "I used to love working on cars," Jason responded, a spark igniting in his chest as he spoke. "I could fix anything, but then that's where you start," the valet encouraged. "You have skills, regain that passion." As Jason stepped out of the car, he felt that surge of hope solidify into determination. He realized this was more than just a chance encounter. It was a pivotal moment, a crossroads where he could choose to forge ahead or retreat back into the shadows. "Thank you," Jason said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Just remember, every journey begins with a single step. Don't let this moment slip away," the valet replied, and Jason could see the sincerity in his eyes. With that, Jason turned to leave, each step resonating with purpose. The city continued to pulse around him, cars rushing by, people lost in their own worlds. But for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was part of it all, not just watching from the sidelines. As he started walking down the street, the late-night air felt alive with promise. Every step was richer, propelled by the energy of potential. The roar of the engine would echo in his mind for days to come, a powerful reminder that life could change dramatically in a heartbeat if he dared to pursue it. He knew that the path would not be easy, but with each stride he resolved to convert that fleeting experience into something lasting. He would find a way to reclaim his dreams, one step at a time, each one propelling him forward toward a brighter future. Jason stepped further into the depths of the city, aware that the road ahead was uncertain but filled with possibilities. With courage swelling in his heart, he knew he would become the driver of his destiny, prepared to chase a life worth living. And finally, after years spent in darkness, he dared to believe that the engine of change was already revving within him. Jason slumped against a cold, rough wall, the hardness of the brick pressing into his back. He surveyed the busy street, where the golden glow of restaurant lights spilled onto the pavement, skewering the darkness of the evening. Laughter and chatter echoed all around him, people enjoying their lives while he begged for spare change. He called out, his voice barely breaking through the swirl of sounds. He had done this countless times before, like a worn-out record stuck on the same track. A few coins slipped from passing patrons, their expressions sliding from indifference to pity as they hurried by. The quarter that fell his way was an old friend, tossed at his feet like an unwanted remnant. When he picked it up, it felt both like a lifeline and an anchor, reminding him of how low he had fallen. As he sat there, he watched a striking black sedan roll up to the valet stand. The sleek curves of the vehicle shimmered under the streetlights, capturing his attention in a way that only luxury could. The valet, dressed sharply in crisp black and white, approached the car with a confident stride. He greeted the driver with a smile that glistened with ease, someone who belonged in that world of wealth. The driver stepped out, a man in an impeccably tailored suit, effortlessly exuding self-assuredness. As he strode into the restaurant, he tossed a couple of coins toward Jason, an empty gesture devoid of any real compassion. "Get a job, buddy," he muttered dismissively, already lost in his evening. Jason watched the coins tumble toward him, but they didn't feel like a gift, just a reminder of the chasm between them. He looked up, feeling the weight of that disdain. "Thanks for nothing," he said quietly, feeling the sting of humiliation. But then, just as hope seemed to dissipate, the valet turned his attention toward Jason, curiosity alight in his eyes. "Hey, you," he said, stepping closer. "Yeah, I guess," Jason answered, unable to mask the skepticism in his voice. The valet pointed to the sedan, his expression shifting from concern to enthusiasm. Jason scoffed, barely able to fathom the idea. "Trust me, it's easier than you think," the valet grinned, his energy almost magnetic. Jason blinked, processing what he had just heard. "Was this for real?" "Not even a little bit," the valet replied, a flicker of sincerity shining through. Jason said, anxiety creeping into his voice, fighting against the glimmers of excitement. The valet waved his hand dismissively. "You won't, just get in and feel it." Jason's heart raced. Beyond the shimmering facade of the car lay a world he thought had long since closed its doors. This moment felt monumental, a chance to escape the daily grind, if only briefly. He searched the valet's face for any hint of a trick, but saw nothing but genuine kindness. With a deep breath, he reached out to take the keys, feeling their weight in his palm. "Okay, but I'm serious. I'm not responsible for anything," he said, half joking. "Just have fun," the valet replied, stepping back to let Jason into the car. Sliding into the driver's seat, he felt like a king stepping into his throne. The scent of new leather wrapped around him like a warm blanket, and the dashboard's glowing lights seemed to whisper promises of freedom. He gripped the wheel, fighting the tremor in his hands. With every ounce of courage, he turned the ignition. The engine roared to life, a thrilling growl that resonated deep within him. He could almost feel the power ready to unleash itself. For a moment, he was no longer the man on the street begging for spare change. He was someone else, someone capable of seizing life. The valet called out, his voice laced with encouragement. Jason replied, adrenaline kicking in as he eased the car into gear. As he pulled away from the curb, the world outside faded, each passing streetlight blurring into a streak of incandescent color. The rush of acceleration sent a jolt through him, the weight of his worries lifting like fog under the morning sun. This was pure nirvana, the thrill of the engine beneath him, the wind whipping through his hair as he navigated the city streets. He turned onto quieter avenues where the echo of the engine filled his lungs with exhilaration. For the first time in years, he felt alive. Every corner he took, every burst of speed freed him from despair, even if just for a moment. He didn't just see the glitz and glamour of the city, he felt like he belonged in its rhythm. But as the thrill pulsed through him, doubt began to creep back in, shadowing his excitement. What was he doing? Where would he go from here? He was still the same man with an empty pocket, and the reality of returning to the sidewalk loomed like a dark cloud on the horizon. Gut tightened as he turned down a serene street lined with trees, their leaves whispering secrets in the breeze. He felt both powerful and helpless, living in the moment while knowing it couldn't last. Jason glimpsed at his reflection in the mirror, the exhilaration contending with the haunting reminders of hunger and hardship. His eyes betrayed a longing for more, a glimmer of hope wrapped in despair. How did he move forward from this? Would he find a way to turn this fleeting experience into something tangible? As he navigated through the streets, he dared to imagine a life far beyond his current reality. The car was not just a piece of machinery, it embodied potential, the very thing he craved. He pressed the accelerator, feeling the power surge through him, allowing himself to dream of new possibilities. Suddenly, though, doubt sank deeper. A rush of despair flooded his mind, and he felt the real world tugging at his heartstrings. How could he make this change permanent? Was it possible to leap from a life of begging into a life of purpose? The question echoed in his mind as he roared back toward the valet stand, anxiety clawing at him. He reached the familiar curb, the reality of his choices wrapping around him like a vice. He had to return to where he started. As he parked, the exhilaration began to fade. The moment of freedom melted back into the shadows he had fought against, leaving him raw and exposed. He turned off the ignition, his hands shaking slightly as he took a breath to steady himself. The valet called, a genuine smile lighting up his face. It was incredible, Jason admitted, feeling a rush of emotion welling up inside him. But now I'm just... The valet's expression shifted to something serious, a quiet understanding passing between them. Jason nodded, feeling the lump rise in his throat. It was everything. Start exploring what you love, the valet encouraged. You took a step tonight. I used to fix cars back in the day, Jason said, his heart racing at the thought. The valet's eyes sparkled with sincerity. Remember, it's never too late to find your way back to what you enjoy. As he handed back the keys, Jason couldn't help but feel that this moment would mark a turning point. The weight of despair lessened, replaced by determination. He didn't just want to survive anymore, he wanted to thrive. Thank you for this, more than you know, Jason said, his voice thick with emotion. Just remember, every journey begins with a single step, the valet replied, his confidence radiating like sunlight. With those words ringing in his ears, Jason turned to leave, each step feeling purposeful, firm. The bustling city enveloped him, alive with energy. For the first time, he didn't feel excluded. He felt part of something greater. As he walked away from the valet stand, the thrill of the night still pulsing through his veins, Jason knew this was just the beginning. He had a choice to make. The shadows that had haunted him might still lurk in his mind, but he could also see a path illuminated ahead, a chance to seize control over his destiny. With every footfall, the ground beneath him felt steadier, the promise of a new life coming closer within reach. The engine's roar still echoed in his heart, urging him to grasp the freedom he had tasted, to abandon the chains of despair. Jason stepped confidently into the night, ready to chase the dreams he thought had slipped away. He may have asked for spare change once, but now he was determined to reach for so much more, a life filled with purpose, passion, and potential. The journey had begun, and he was no longer a passenger in someone else's story. He was the author of his own end. The road ahead was wide open. Jason didn't expect much when he crouched against the cold brick wall, the vibrancy of the city bustling around him. Every night he held out his hand, hope dangling like a thread. He murmured, his voice barely rising above the tide of laughter and rich conversations flowing from the nearby restaurant. Most people passed him by without a glance, as if he were a ghost bound to the shadows of the bustling street. But tonight something shifted. A sleek black sedan glided to a stop at the valet stand. The engine rumbled softly, a purr almost inviting Jason to look. The valet, impeccably dressed in crisp black and white, approached the car with an air of confidence that contrasted sharply with the desperation of Jason's existence. The driver stepped out, a man in a tailored suit, stepping into the spotlight of wealth and privilege. As he swung the door shut, he tossed a handful of coins Jason's way. They landed at his feet, a mocking gesture not even worth the effort of acknowledgement. "Get a job, buddy," the man said, dismissing Jason with a wave. "Yeah, thanks," Jason muttered, scooping up the coins. They felt like a cruel reminder, the weight of his situation sinking in, a couple of quarters. What wouldn't he give for a chance to change this life? Just then the valet paused, catching Jason's eye for the first time. Jason raises an eyebrow, fully aware of what that statement usually meant. The valet leaned in, the energy radiating from him palpable. He nodded toward the luxury sedan parked just a few feet away. Jason laughed, a bitter sound escaping him. "Drive that? Are you kidding? Trust me." The valet grinned as though he believed every word. For a moment, Jason couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. Was this a joke? Absolutely, you deserve a chance to feel something different. Jason's heart raced, a mixture of disbelief and hope swirling within him. Come on, just think about it." The valet's eyes sparkled with energy, igniting a flicker of courage inside Jason. With trembling hands, he took the keys, feeling their cool weight. Was this really happening? He approached the car, his heart pounding, a mix of excitement and anxiety flooding through him. Sliding into the driver's seat, he inhaled the intoxicating scent of new leather. This wasn't just a car, it was a symbol, the embodiment of everything he had once dreamed of. He gripped the steering wheel, a familiar tremor coursing through him, but this time it felt alive, electric. He turned the key in the ignition and the engine roared to life, vibrating through him like a wild heartbeat. This was power, this was escape. the valet called, his excitement palpable. Jason blurted out, feeling more alive than he had in years. As he pulled away, the world outside blurred. The city lights whirred past, a beautiful kaleidoscope of colors. For those moments, he felt as if he were flying, clouds of despair parting to reveal a brighter horizon. Each acceleration felt like shedding chains, freeing him from the weight he'd carried for so long. But as he maneuvered through the streets, exhilaration twisted into apprehension. What would happen when he had to return this borrowed joy? The thrill of the ride began a battle with the depths of his reality. The streets grew quieter as he turned onto an avenue lined with trees, their branches swaying gently in the cool evening breeze. Jason took a breath, the uncertainty of his actions pricking at him. This moment was magical, yet heavy with consequences. He found himself gazing at the dashboard lights, feeling the power beneath him. The thrill of freedom was intoxicating, and yet the shadows of his past loomed large in the corners of his mind. Maybe I could change, he whispered to himself, heart pounding. In that stillness, he envisioned a future he'd long thought impossible, one where he had control over his life. The car felt like a vehicle for dreams long buried. With each turn of the wheel, he wrestled with his fears, the tension mixing with the adrenaline surging through him. Thought Jason. The weight of those thoughts nestled deep in his chest, shadowing his joy. As he accelerated down a stretch of road, it hit him. The roar of the engine mirrored his heart, each pulse reminding him that he was alive. He pressed on the gas, feeling the rush flood his veins, that exhilarating sense of freedom calling him to chase something more significant than mere survival. Jason relinquished his doubts for just a moment, allowing himself to embrace the thrill of the night. He imagined carving out a new destiny, one filled with possibility, but then a thought knocked against his mind like a distant thunderclap. That question lingered, heavier than any coin tossed his way. Every sound the tires on pavement, the hum of the engine, he felt life surging through him. The streetlights blurred into snaking ribbons of gold and silver as he rounded another corner, the anticipation building within him. But he also knew he couldn't stay on this high forever. The lights began to fade as he realized he was racing toward a deadline. He had to return, and uncertainty gnawed at him like a ravenous animal. The realization weighed heavily on him. This was a joy he couldn't afford to keep. As he turned back toward the valet stand, visions of the past crept back in. Would he truly return to asking for spare change? Would this experience just deepen the chasm of disappointment? With a deep breath, Jason parked the car, the electric hum fading into silence. Anxiety surged within him as he turned off the engine, the weight of reality crashing down like a wave. What would the valet say? Would the brief taste of glory only highlight the bitterness waiting for him? The valet exclaimed, oblivious to the storm brewing inside Jason. It was incredible, Jason admitted, his heart still racing. But now I'm just left wanting more. The valet's expression shifted, a flicker of understanding reflected in his eyes. You don't have to, this was a moment, but it doesn't have to be the end. Jason stared, grappling with the truth of those words. How do I make that happen? The valet pressed. I used to work on cars, Jason replied, and the ember of passion ignited once more within him. I was good at it, but it all fell apart when life. Then go back to that, the valet said, his voice steady, inspiring confidence. You drive well, you've just experienced something incredible. Translate that passion into your life. The fire in Jason's chest grew stronger, fueled by the hope blooming in the air around them. He took the keys and handed them back to the valet, feeling a weight lift. Thank you for this. Just remember, every journey begins with a single step. Don't underestimate yourself, the valet said, his smile now bright with sincerity. As Jason stepped away from the car, he was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The shadows he had known for so long weren't vanishing completely, but he could see a flicker of light cutting through the dark. Maybe there was a way to rewrite his story. With a nod, he set off down the street, each step firm beneath him. The cacophony of the city flooded around him, cars cruising past, laughter cascading like water over stones, and the familiar scent of street food lingered in the air. But this time he felt different. He was no longer tethered to despair. As he walked, Jason felt the world opening up around him, possibilities blossoming like flowers. Each breath tasted like adventure, a promise that he would not only survive but thrive. He might not have known where this journey would take him, but he was finally willing to find out. With the hum of the city at his back and the thrill of the night still echoing in his heart, Jason stepped into the future with newfound determination. What lay ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he dared to dream of more. He would no longer be the man who simply asked for spare change. He would become the architect of his own life, ready to seize the keys to his destiny. Jason crouched against the cold concrete, the chill seeping into his bones. The city buzzed around him, an orchestra of laughter, conversations, and the clinking of glasses from the nearby restaurant, hoping someone might take notice. But most of the time, people rushed by, their faces turned slightly away, as though he were invisible. Tonight felt heavier than usual. The few coins he collected clinked like distant echoes in his mind, a reminder of how far he had fallen. The quarter he clutched felt both like a lifeline and an anchor, a small token of pity tossed his way. He fought the gnawing emptiness deep in his gut as people drifted past, engrossed in their own worlds. And then, as if the night were stage-managed for drama, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the valet stand. The polished exterior gleamed under the streetlights like a beacon of wealth and possibility. The valet, sharply dressed in a crisp white shirt and black vest, approached the car with an effortless confidence. Jason's eyes widened, the aura of success radiated from the vehicle, starkly contrasting the grime of his reality. The driver emerged, a man in a tailored suit with a gold watch that glinted like a trophy. He carried himself with an air of entitlement. Without so much as a glance at Jason, he tossed a handful of coins toward him. They landed at his feet with a hard clink, echoes of a world far removed from his own. "Thanks for nothing," Jason mumbled, bitterness creeping into his words. Picking up the coins, he glanced at the driver, who was already lost in his life of luxury, disappearing into the restaurant. Just as Jason was about to drift back into despair, the valet turned his attention away from the departing man, his eyes locking onto Jason's. "Hey, you seem like you could use a break," he said, stepping closer, a hint of genuine concern in his voice. Jason sat up a little straighter, caught off guard. "Yeah, I guess," he replied, skepticism lacing his tone. The valet nodded towards the sleek sedan, his enthusiasm almost infectious. Jason let out a short laugh, half sarcastic, half hopeful. "Trust me, it's easier than you think." The valet's confidence was unwavering, as if he believed completely in the potential that lay within Jason. Jason felt disbelief wash over him. "You're serious?" The valet's grin widened. "You've spent enough time out here." Jason hesitated, battling the mix of excitement and fear churning in his stomach. The idea felt almost absurd, like a dream, but what did he have to lose? He had spent enough time begging for scraps. This could be a moment, a fleeting escape from the chains of his current life. After a brief, racing heartbeat, he reached for the keys, feeling their cool metal against his palm. "Okay, but I'm not liable for anything," he joked, his tone lighter but filled with urgency. The valet laughed and stepped back, gesturing toward the car. "Go on." Sliding into the driver's seat was a surreal experience. The scent of new leather enveloped him like a warm embrace, wrapping around his soul. The dashboard lit up with vibrant colors, gadgets and controls that felt foreign yet tantalizingly inviting. Jason gripped the steering wheel, his pulse quickening. With a deep breath, he turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, the sound vibrating through him like a jolt of electricity. This wasn't just a car, it was a portal to another world. The valet called, his voice filled with encouragement. "Yeah, let's do this," Jason replied, his heart pounding with adrenaline. He eased the car onto the busy street, the world blurring past him as he pressed the pedals, feeling the raw power beneath him. In an instant, he was set free, the tension and aches of his life falling away like autumn leaves. Each twist of the wheel was a rebellion against his reality, and every ounce of acceleration pulled him away from the darkness that had clouded his existence for far too long. The city lights flickered like stars, illuminating his path as he raced through the streets. Jason glanced at the dashboard, hardly able to contain the euphoria welling up inside him. He was alive, truly alive, for the first time in years. But then a wave of doubt surged. What would happen when he had to return? What did it say about his life if this beautiful moment was just a fleeting escape? Would he still be left sitting in the shadows, begging for scraps? The thought gnawed at him, but he pressed on, turning onto quieter streets lined with trees. Here the noise of the city faded to a soft murmur and the headlights cast long shadows. This was freedom, but he couldn't ignore the weight of reality looming behind him. He glanced into the rearview mirror, his own eyes reflecting the thrill and trepidation. What if he could change his life? What if this moment could be the catalyst for something greater? The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. With each mile, he dared to imagine a life filled with purpose, where he didn't have to beg for change. The car responded to his every command, mirroring the newfound determination surging within him. "Maybe I can turn this around," he whispered to himself, but with every thought, the clock in his mind ticked louder. The time to return was inevitable, blending anticipation with suffocating pressure. The heady mix of freedom and obligation twisted in his gut, causing his heart to race. Jason drove a few more blocks, spirit soaring like a bird wearing its wings for the first time. Then he turned back, heading toward the valet stand, every inch of him charged with a new sense of possibility. Could he carry this feeling back into his life? Would it vanish, leaving him hollow once more? As he parked the car, a lump formed in his throat. What if this was just a single moment, a beautiful escape that wouldn't change a thing? He stepped out, feeling both empowered and terrified at the thought of returning to the sidewalk. The valet stood waiting, a careful smile framing his face. He asked, genuine interest shining in his eyes. "Incredible," Jason replied, voice thick with emotion. "But now I'm just..." The valet asked, stepping forward, his demeanor steady. "I don't want to go back to begging," Jason admitted, the confession pouring from him like a flood. "I want this feeling." The valet's expression softened. "You don't have to go back. This moment is a reminder you have the power to shape your life." "I used to love working on cars," Jason said, the memory sparking an old flame within him. "I was really good at it." "Then let this experience guide you back to that," the valet urged, the sincerity in his voice clear. You have skills. You can channel this adventure into finding a way out. You just drove a car that could change everything," Jason interrupted, realization sweeping over him. "Yes, every great journey starts with a desire to change," the valet said, nodding enthusiastically. As Jason returned the keys, he felt the burden of hopelessness lift. "Thank you so much for this opportunity," he said, the words pouring out with genuine appreciation. "Remember, it's all about perspective. When you leave here, carry this energy with you," the valet replied, his face illuminated with encouragement. With those words resonating deep within, Jason stepped back into the world, breathing in the cool night air. As he turned away from the valet, the energy of the city buzzed around him, pulsing with life. For the first time in ages, Jason felt a flicker of hope, a light breaking through the darkness. He began to walk, heart racing with every step, but an unsettling thought suddenly gripped him. What if he couldn't make this change happen? What if the weight of reality pulled him back into the shadows, away from the light, and then he froze? Ahead, in the dim light, he spotted a familiar face. It was a figure he hadn't seen in years, a ghost from his past who had once haunted his dreams. The man was approaching, his eyes wide with disbelief. The figure called, taking a step closer. The sudden rush of emotions surged through Jason's veins, a mix of joy, fear, and nostalgia. Time stood still, the echoes of his past crashing against the fragile hope he had begun to build. Would this be a chance for redemption, or would it pull him back into the darkness he fought so hard to escape? As he stood at that crossroads, Jason felt the weight of the moment bearing down. Could he hold on to what little light he had, or would the shadows claim him once again? The night shifted as he prepared to face the man who could either save him or shatter his fragile new beginning. The question hung in the air like a challenge, one that would define the path he would choose to walk.